Winning Blueprint presents.
In the lab room.
Welcome back. You're in the lab room on this gorgeous Friday afternoon. Hope you're having as good a Friday as I am. Happy Friday to all. I'm your host, Lou, here on these two-a-days, knocking out each team in the NFL as we go in and do a lab report and an experiment on each team in the National Football League. Before we jump into our lab reports today, we had some preseason action, and I'm so excited because my boys had their first preseason action of the year. It was exciting. I was ready for this game to happen. I wanted to see what Robert Griffin III was going to look like. I was not disappointed. He came in. He showed us what he could do just a little bit. You know, there's still a lot more progress that needs to be made, but if you're a Redskins fan, initially what you saw, you had to be pleased with the limited amount of action that he saw. He got 3 possessions, went 3 and out once, had a fumble on another possession. I actually thought Pierre Garçon caught that first pass on that first possession that they went 3 and out on, but that's nor here nor there. No need to cry with spilt milk. He went down on his third possession, took the team all the way down the field, put it in the end zone for 7 points. As a Redskin fan, that's what you want to see. You want to see more points being scored via touchdown, less field goals being kicked. The defense showed they got pressure early and often. That's what you want to see. We did give up a touchdown to Stevie Johnson. It was called back for illegal procedure. So it was good to see football back on the TV screen, especially it being my favorite team. Also, quick note, Peyton Manning had his first game back since the neck injury and the surgeries. He looked good. He did throw 1 interception, but he was just ecstatic to be back on the football field. You can tell. He was thanking everybody from his kindergarten teacher to the trainers that helped him get back. So he was very ecstatic. You saw a side of Peyton Manning you don't normally see, and he was very gracious for his return. I think he was a lot happier than he let on. He tried to make it seem as if it was just business as usual, but deep down inside, he was anxious. There was a lot of nerves going on, and he was ecstatic to be back. And I'm glad to see him back. Peyton Manning is a Hall of Fame player, and the NFL is a better league when Peyton Manning is playing football. He's going to make the Denver Broncos must-see TV this year. So good to see him back on the field. More games tonight, more games Saturday, a game Sunday, and a game Monday. So be on the lookout. Preseason is full tilt now. You're going to have football just about 4 times a week moving forward until the season starts. It's football season, guys. It is football season. We are getting started. It's starting to get revved up. And for the next 6 months, we are going to be knee-deep in NFL football. This is what we love. So let's get ready for it. Now, on to the lab reports. I love talking about great football teams. I love watching good football. And the next 2 teams that we're going to discuss play good football and can potentially be great teams in the league in 2012. We're done with the AFC East. Now we're on to the NFC North. If you're going to talk NFC North football, you have to start with the Green Bay Packers. I love the Green Bay Packers. I'm a Redskin fan, but more specifically, I love Aaron Rodgers. He's my favorite player, not a Redskin, in the NFL. His demeanor, the way he plays the game, I love Aaron Rodgers. And so the Green Bay Packers are always a joy to watch. And so let's get into the strengths of the Green Bay Packers. If you're a Green Bay Packers fan right now, life must be nice. You win the Super Bowl in 2010. You go 15-1 in 2011. You don't win the Super Bowl, but you got to feel like your chances are just as good as anyone in the league to win it in 2012. With just about all your pieces coming back, you got to feel good about your chances to go right back to the Super Bowl again. And I think the Packers are going to learn from the mistakes that they made in 2011, the few mistakes that they made, but it did end up costing them in the end. And they're going to go back to the Super Bowl. This team is locked, loaded, and ready to go back to the Super Bowl. And they have arguably the best quarterback in the league to take them there. The Packers have a number of strengths, and we could just go down the list. Matter of fact, let's do that. Let's go down the list. You got Aaron Rodgers. You have that Packers offensive attack. You have head coach Mike McCarthy, Charles Woodson, Tim Mathstay, and you have Mason Crosby. These are all strengths of the Packers. Let's go after them in sequential order, though. Aaron Rodgers. Let's rewind to 2005. Aaron Rodgers has a chance to go to his hometown team, the San Francisco 49ers, with the first pick in the overall in the 2005 draft. They pass on him to take Alex Smith. From that point on, Aaron Rodgers sits in the green room as 22 other names are called, and he is the last man standing in the green room. Finally, the Packers, looking for someone to take Brett Favre's place down the line, so they take him to be an understudy under Brett Favre, learn from him, and become their future, the future of their franchise. And so you fast forward to 2011 to start the season. Aaron Rodgers is fresh off of a Super Bowl victory where he was the MVP of the game. He walks into the room and you go, "The champ is here! The champ is here! The champ is here! The champ is here!" He's giving you the belt. No, not discount, double check, world championship belt, as he is a Super Bowl champion. Not only does he come into the room with that type of swagger, he takes it onto the field in the tune of 45 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, over 4,500 yards passing, and he didn't even play in the final game of the season. Didn't need to. Aaron Rodgers is the complete package at the quarterback position. You won't find a better quarterback in the business right now. Aaron Rodgers is that guy. He brings everything you're looking for in a quarterback to the table. And I have never seen this in my entire life. I can't speak for anybody else. My eyes have never seen a guy that can do the things he can do on the football field as a quarterback, all rolled up in one package. Aaron Rodgers can throw from in the pocket, out of the pocket, on the move, left or right, across his body, on a dead rope. As accurate as he is in the pocket, he's outside of the pocket, on the move. You can't talk about too many quarterbacks that can do that. And not to mention, he can get out of the pocket. If you blitz, no one's open, or he doesn't have a chance to see what's going on, he can take off, he can run, and he's just as athletic as some of the top tier athletic quarterbacks in the league. He's not as fast as a Vic. He's not as fast as a Cam Newton, but he can run. He can run, and he can get away from defenders, and he knows how to get down. So Aaron Rodgers is definitely a strength for the Green Bay Packers. You go to that passing game, and it's led by Aaron Rodgers. That whole offensive attack in terms of passing game, second to none in the league. You got Jordy Nelson. You have James Jones. You have Greg Jennings. They're adding guys in the mix. Of course, you got Donald Driver. You look, they have Randall Cobb. They have guys everywhere you can get the ball to. Those were all receivers. We didn't even mention the fact that they had Jermichael Finley, Crabtree, a lot of guys out there, Corliss, that they could throw the football to at the tight end position as well. This team clicks on all cylinders week in and week out. That's the hardest part about this Green Bay passing attack is that from week to week, they're so consistent. They don't take plays off. They don't take games off. You're going to get points put on your head if they're playing at the level that they're capable of playing. And last year in 2011, they played at that level for about 16 weeks, or 15 out of the 7 weeks that they played football last year. So this team and that passing game is probably the most dangerous and scary in the league right now. Definitely a strength for the Green Bay Packers. You look and you keep going down the list. Mike McCarthy, their head coach, he's as steady, even keel as it gets in the NFL. He gets it as a head coach. He has this team focused and prepared to play football every Sunday. They come out and they execute and they play good football because it starts at the top with Mike McCarthy and his coaching style. He comes in, he's got the offense playing at a high level. He oversees the whole team, but does not strangle the coordinators from doing their job. He's a great manager of the game. He knows when to challenge plays. He knows when to scale back. I love Mike McCarthy. I love his demeanor. I love the way he coaches the Packers. Even the way he runs his practices are a little bit different than the rest of the league. And I think that Mike McCarthy will be one of these coaches that you look back on and say, hey, that guy was a heck of a coach in the National Football League. When it's all said and done, he might have 3 or 4 Super Bowl rings to prove it. Moving on that list of strengths that the Packers have is Charles Woodson. And I remember Charles Woodson coming out of Michigan with all that talent, all that hype, and I felt like he was underachieving, and he may not have been in Oakland, but I just felt like he was one of those guys who had immense talent, but he just knew he was better than everybody else. So I wasn't sure if he was out there giving it his all at all times. Well, change of scenery for him. He goes to Green Bay, and all of a sudden, the guy is a force on the football field that you cannot ignore. Whether he's lined up at corner out wide, in the slot, in safety, at linebacker, you don't know where Charles Woodson's going to be on the field, but one thing you can be assured of, he's going to make a play wherever he is. I love Charles Woodson because he's not a corner, he's not a safety, he's not a linebacker. He is a football player. And what I mean by that is no matter where you put him on the field, he's going to make a play. Whether it's picking it off, and other than Peanut Tillman, I don't think anybody else has the uncanny ability to poke the ball out and force fumbles. Charles Woodson has mastered the craft of poking the football out and forcing turnovers. And when he picks up a fumble or when he picks a pass off, he's looking to get in the end zone. He's not one of these guys that's satisfied with just picking the ball off and getting his team the ball in great field position. No. That's not good enough for Charles. Charles is trying to take it to the house. And that's why you got to appreciate what Charles Woodson brings to the table. I think that in the last 6 years, he solidified himself as a Hall of Fame player in this league. I don't think you could have said that when he left Oakland. You go next to the 2 special teamers. You have Tim Masthay and you have Mason Crosby. Both of these guys are elite in their respective positions. Crosby being a field goal kicker, Masthay being the punter. Masthay had his best year as a punter. He was averaging close to 49 yards per punt. And he's been consistent. The Packers don't punt often, but when they do, it's always good to know you have a guy that's going to boom it and set your defense up in a quality position. Same with the offense. The offense, they don't kick many field goals. But when they do, it's good to know you have a guy like Mason Crosby who's going to pound it through. He basically he had an 86% field goal make percentage last year. And while that's not the best in the league, that is very consistent, is what you look for in your field goal kicker. And he made kicks when they were there to be made. And that's all you can ask for from your field goal kicker. So the Packers have a plethora of strengths. But when you go 15-2, but don't win the Super Bowl, you must have a few small, tiny cracks in your armor that allowed you to lose those 2 games, especially the one that cost you a chance to go back to the Super Bowl. The Packers were flawless except for 2 games last year. And the reason that they weren't flawless is because of 2 reasons. One, their running game is non-existent. The Packers don't need to run the ball for the most part because Aaron Rodgers in that passing attack is so prolific. But in the playoffs, you can get away with that in the regular season when you're playing the Rams, when you're playing the Browns, when you're playing the Broncos before they got Peyton Manning, teams that you can throw the football on and rack up points and not have to run the football as efficiently. But when you run into teams or you have a day where your offense is out of sync, as they did against the Chiefs when they lost their first game last year, you have to be able to rely on something else, a la the running game. The Packers didn't have that to fall back on. If the passing game wasn't clicking and they weren't in sync, you can tell because there was no recourse after that. There was nothing else that they could hang their hat on because they couldn't run the football. So not being able to run the football cost them in the long run because they were able to get over that stumble that they had against the Chiefs. Everybody wrote it off as, oh, they just didn't have a good game. And teams, for the most part, everyone in the league is going to have an off game. So everybody wrote that off as an off game. But what that Chiefs game really was it was an indication that if the Packers weren't clicking on all cylinders on offense, they were going to struggle. They were going to be a team that could be beaten. And that's what happened. First game in the playoffs, they came in. They were out of sync because Aaron Rodgers and half of that offense didn't play against the Detroit Lions in the season finale because they didn't need to play. People were hurt, nursing injuries. They sat out, and then they had a bye week. So essentially, you're looking at not playing football for 3 weeks. They suited up, played against the Giants, and the Giants were the hot team. They had the momentum. The Packers were out of sync, and it showed. They didn't have a running game to lean on. They lost the game. Another weakness of the Packers is their pass rush. And in 2010, when they won the Super Bowl, they were among the league leaders in sacks. Clay Matthews was an absolute beast. He was tearing up quarterbacks, forcing fumbles, picking off passes. He was doing it all in 2010. But in 2011, he was really quiet. Be very, very quiet. That's what Clay Matthews was. You know why he was very quiet? And it's okay. It's okay. Everybody isn't an elite pass rusher. The Packers were feeling so good about his talent. They felt like they could take him, move him to the right side of the defense, left side of the offense, put him against the other team's best tackle, of course, the left tackle, put anybody they want on the right side and go against the other team's weaker tackle and feel like they can still get the production that they got in 2010. Wrong. Clay Matthews struggled against elite tackles in this league. Hence, the Packers are moving him back to the right side where he tore the league up in 2010. And that's the smart thing to do. Don't be bullheaded and try to prove to people that he's an elite pass rusher. Let him dominate talent that is not upper echelon in his league. Make him work, be a strength for your team. So they're moving him back to the right side, and they went and they drafted someone to go on that left side and hopefully bolster that pass rush. But in 2011, they flat out could not get to the quarterback. They just didn't get to the quarterback. They were 27th in the league with 19 sacks. Not going to get it done in the league. But when you score as many points as the Packers do and you force as many turnovers as the Packers do, you can get away with only having 19 sacks. But you can't rely on getting turnovers and having the offense be explosive year in and year out. You got to get to the quarterback. Simple as that. So that was the other weakness that the Packers had in 2011. Let's move on to camp battles. And the Packers, when you go 15-2 in any given season and you don't win the Super Bowl, it's disappointing. But if you basically come back intact the next season and tweak the things that caused you to not win the Super Bowl, you're not going to have a lot of camp battles. So the Packers go into camp this year And they're not really looking to move too many pieces around. They feel like they let themselves down. They feel like they beat themselves. No one really beat them last year. But you do have to tweak things year in, year out. Even when you win the Super Bowl, you still have to tweak things because the rest of the league is trying to play catch up. They're trying to get to where you are, so you have to keep developing, growing, and growing as a football team to keep the rest of the league at bay. So with that being said, the Packers are moving some things around. I've already mentioned Clay Matthews. That was a failed experiment. He's not as good as they thought he was. He's as athletic and he is as dangerous as they thought he was. And he's going to continue to show you that back on the right side of the defense. But he's not DeMarcus Ware. He's not a Jared Allen. He's not a guy that can be put on either side of the field and go up against supreme talent, game in, game out, and produce the type of numbers that a DeMarcus Ware, that a Jared Allen, that a JPP can produce week in and week out going up against the other team's best tackle. So he has to move back to the right side to be as explosive and disruptive as he was for the Packers in 2010. And that's all right. That's all right. So on that left side now, it's a vacancy. They need someone. Eric Walden played out at right linebacker last year across from Clay Matthews because they felt like they could stick anybody in there and get pressure because Clay was going to be producing pressure off of the left side. Well, Eric Walden was invisible last year. No one knew who was on the other side of Clay Matthews because he wasn't making any plays. And that was disappointing to the Packers because he showed promise to get to the quarterback in 2010. For him to not do anything in 2011 was very disappointing. They had to go out and draft a young guy, the defensive end out of USC, Nick Perry, and they're hoping that he can be that pass rusher in the mold of a Lamar Whitley, a big, stocky guy with a big frame that can bull rush and have sneaky speed on the outside and get to the quarterback, collapse that pocket, and give Clay Matthews that support that he needs on the other side. So that's one of the positions that's open. Another position that's going to be open. The Packers last year were disappointed, and they should be. They were ranked 32nd in the league, dead last in stopping the pass. Their pass defense was porous, and that's being nice, okay? Their pass defense was the worst in the league. So, and a lot of that had to do with injuries and a lack of pass rush, which is what we just addressed. So, Tramon Williams is looking to rebound from an off year. He was a little banged up in the secondary. He'll be holding down one corner spot. Charles Woodson is being listed as a safety this year. The reason why that's important is because he'll be all around the field. You don't know where Charles Woodson is going to be. He's like, where's Waldo? Where's Charles Woodson? Where is he going to be on the field? You don't know if he's going to be, again, out wide at corner, in the slot, at safety, lined up as a linebacker. You don't know where Charles Woodson is going to be. All you know is he's going to be on the field. He's going to be making plays. But his designation as a safety this year opens a spot up at the corner position. Last year, Sam Shields played the majority of snaps at that corner position, and he started most of the games for the Packers. But they were disappointed in him because he wasn't physical enough at that corner position. He wasn't the willing tackler that you would like to have out in space. He's got all the physical tools to keep up with any receiver in the league. He can run and jump and play the ball with the best of them, but he wasn't willing to be a run support corner out there. They need more physicality out of it. Guys were breaking tackles after they caught the passes on Sam Shields, and you can't have that in this league. You can't have guys getting yak after breaking tackles when the defender is there. He just can't wrap up and pull people down. And so they're looking to get stronger at that corner spot. So they like Jared Bush. He's been there, right? He's been a core special teamist. He's contributed in the nickel, dime, and quarter packages in the past for the Packers. They're looking to give him a look. He's running with the first team right now, but Don't be surprised if second-year man out of New Mexico State, Devon House, is getting legitimate, meaningful snaps in the 2012 season because the Packers like his size. He's 6'1". He's very physical. He's not afraid to stick his nose in there and make a tackle, and he can run. The Packers really like what he's been doing in camp. And if he continues to impress in the preseason, they might have a play on their hands, and he might be starting at some point in the 2012 season at cornerback across from Tramon Williams. Those are your camp battles. So now we want to move into the rookie watch. And we've already touched on their first-round draft pick. The Packers felt like that was an area of need, and they addressed it with their first-round pick, Nick Perry, the DN/outside linebacker from USC. They're going to plug him in there, and they're going to look to have him create pressure, collapse the pocket, because he's a big boy. He's 270. They might ask him to carve down to probably 265, 260 to be a little bit quicker, but he's a big guy. He's got a wide frame, and so they're looking for him to be in that Lamar Woodley mold of a guy who's strong at the point of attack, so you can't really run at him in the run game, but also can bull rush tackles, get in their face, get up under their pad levels, jack them up back into the quarterback, and also when they think the bull rush is coming, step around them, go around them with the quickness, and get to the quarterback. They're looking for Nick Perry to provide some extra pressure because the Packers did not have any in 2011. Their second-round pick was the defensive tackle Jarrell Worthy out of Michigan State. And this guy is a big, beefy guy that's going to add depth to that defensive line. The Packers feel like they're stout at the defensive line, and he's just going to add more depth. Look for him to be in that rotation in 2011, contribute, and be a guy that you'll see on the field quite a bit in 2012. The Packers had 2 second-round selections, the second of which was the cornerback out of Vanderbilt, Casey Hayward. Now, this guy has immense talent, and scouts had him as the second corner behind Morris Claiborne in the draft, and he was sought as a guy that could come in and start right away for a team if he landed in the right situation. And what happened with Casey Hayward is his top end speed is what stopped him from being a first-round draft pick. His ball skills, his ability to come up and help and run support, they're tops in this draft. He's right there with Morris Claiborne. He makes plays on the ball. He's not afraid to stick you could argue he's a more physical corner than Morris Claiborne. Only thing that held him back and stopped him from being a first-round pick was his ability to run, his lack of top-end speed. He ran a 4.57 at the combine, and so that kind of scared some teams away and made them feel like he was more of a cover 2 cornerback. But the Packers are going to throw him out there. They're going to see what he can do, and that's what the Packers do. They love to compile guys in the secondary who are playmakers, who will catch the ball when it is thrown to them and will make plays. And that's why the Packers, year in and year out, are among the league leaders in interceptions. They led the league in 2010 in interceptions. They led the league in 2011 in interceptions with 31. The Packers pick the ball off. That's what they do. And Casey Hayward will fit right in with the rest of that group because he's a guy that will attack the football. The Packers had a 4th-round selection, 2 of them, but the first of those 4th-round selections was a defensive tackle out of Iowa, Mike Daniels. And now this guy was a surprise to many that the Packers would take him because he's an undersized D tackle, especially for what they look for in a D tackle. Their D tackles are big, space-eating tackles in the mold of a B.J. Raji that are going to be able to play multiple positions on the line, D and D tackle, and be versatile. And this guy is kind of light for what the Packers usually draft. However, the Packers do play a lot of nickel, a lot of dime, and so they need defensive linemen who can be in the game, play both the run and the pass, in these dime and nickel sets. And so where Daniels is going to earn his keep is in these nickel and dime packages. He's going to have to prove to the Packers that he can get pressure on the quarterback and still play these draws and these delay handoffs from that nickel and dime defensive line rotation. If he can show that the Packers that he can do that, he will earn his keep on this roster. And that's going to do it for the rookie watch. We're going to move in to the Packers experiment. And it's called Hungry Cheeseheads, because I feel like the Packers season last year and them coming up short, even though they were among the best teams in the league, they're hungry now. They're reinvigorated. They feel like that was their championship that got taken away from them by the Giants last year, and they're out for revenge. They feel like they were the better team in that ball game. They didn't play their best football, and they beat themselves. And that may be the case, but nobody cares, and nobody wants to hear your sob stories about what you didn't do. We only want to talk about what that other team who won, what they did. And the Giants took it to the Packers. They made the Packers one-dimensional, and the Packers they weren't in sync. And they did not do the things that got them to the point that they were at, and they went home. So let's get into the research question. Will the subtle changes made in the offseason be enough to help Aaron Rodgers and that electrifying offense get back to and win another Super Bowl title? Like, again, only time will tell if the changes that the Packers made, and they were small, minute changes, but if these changes will be enough to augment that Packers offense, because Aaron Rodgers is an elite quarterback in this league. The NFL Network, again, and I always like to reference this because it's a good indicator of what players around the league feel or who they feel are the elite players at their position. The top 100 players in the NFL study was done by the NFL Network, voted on by the players. Aaron Rodgers was the number one player in the league on that list. Not at his position, but in the league. So that tells you how much people respect Aaron Rodgers and respect what he's doing right now. He had the highest passer rating in NFL history last year. So that gives you an indication of how hot he is. And if he can continue to play like that, if that offense can continue to play like that, sky's the limit for the Packers, definitely. Hypothesis. If the defense can return to 2010 form, when they were forcing turnovers, getting pressure on the quarterback, getting teams off the field, getting the ball back into the hands of the offense. And I'm going to tell you what, the offense wasn't even at the level that they're at now in 2010. So if the defense is even remotely close to the way they were in 2010, the league is in trouble. There's no other way to say it. The league is in serious trouble if the Packers get back to their defensive 2010 form. So if the defense can return to 2010 form, the running game is somewhat present, and Aaron Rodgers and company continue to be as efficient as any offense in this league, then the Packers can win their second Super Bowl title in the last 3 seasons. I don't see why this can't happen. The only thing in that equation that I'm a little iffy on is a run game. And Aaron Rodgers came out in the offseason and said, what do we need to run the ball for? I can handle passing the rock. I did a great job of it last year. I can do it again. We really don't need the run game. Well, Greg Jennings came out and said the direct opposite. We do need the run game. We need somebody to step up and tote the rock for us. And you know who's right? Both of them are right. Because in the regular season, Aaron Rodgers and that offense passing is good enough to get them by. It's good enough because they're so talented and so elite at so many skill positions on offense. It's enough to carry them through the regular season with a little bit of the run game sprinkled in. In the postseason, however, Greg Jennings is right. You do need the run game. They do need to be able to run the football. So they're going to have to establish that throughout the course of the season because the run game is not just going to show up in the postseason. You're going to have to establish that throughout the season so that when you get in the playoffs, you know that this is something that we can do because we've done it in the past. Materials needed. Awesome Aaron. You're going to get awesome Aaron Rodgers. You don't have to worry about it. The champ is here. He's going to dominate. He's going to continue to be and play at an MVP-like pace as he was in 2011. He's going to continue to play at that pace. You don't have to worry about Aaron Rodgers. That's the least of the Packers' concern. Righteous receiving. The receivers that the Packers put on the field as a group collectively might be the best in the league. From 1 to 4, they have a group of guys that can get open on just about any defense in the league. And it doesn't matter if you stop one, someone else is open. You stop 2, the slot guy is open. You stop 3, the 4th receiver is running open. You stop those 4, the tight end is running up the seam. You can't stop all of them. All of them will not be stopped on any given play. And Aaron Rodgers does a great job of spreading the wealth around, and he's going to get the ball to the open receiver. And if you cover all of them, if you're lucky enough to have everybody covered on one play, Aaron Rodgers is great, just as Drew Brees is, of throwing guys open. So you might get a back shoulder throw right on your head. You might get a throw that threads the needle. You had the perfect coverage, but you can't defend the perfect pass. And so Aaron Rodgers is great at throwing with such accuracy and great precision that he threads the needle in so many times that you're like, wow, that was one heck of a throw. That was great defense, better offense. So the receivers will produce in 2012. Run game, a little help, please. Somebody, anybody, please. The Packers need James Starks or Johnny White. Somebody has to step up and make plays for this run game. The Packers also have Brandon Sane, a guy out of Ohio State that they like. Somebody has to make plays in this run game. You can't just rely on the passing game at all times. Because as we've seen in the playoffs against the Giants and in the regular season against the Chiefs last year, there are going to be games when the passing game is out of sync. The running game has to be able to step in and pick up where the pass game left off in order for this team to be successful. More sacks, more defensive resistance. They didn't get pressure last year. In turn, they left the corners out to dry, which led to the teams playing against the Packers to average 300 passing yards against the Packers. 300 yards passing. There are teams in the league who have quarterbacks who don't even sniff 300 yards passing. But when they play the Packers and their defense, they have career days on them because they weren't getting pressure on the quarterback to force errant throws, to get the ball out of their hands. They were comfortable. They got to go through their reads, see who was open, hit the open receiver, and move the sticks and matriculate the ball down the field. The Packers have to get pressure. They have to stop giving up so many yards in the passing game if they want to be the team that they were in 2010 and win the Super Bowl. Stars shine bright. The Packers need their stars to shine bright, as they have consistently in the past. Last year, their stars were shining bright. They just weren't their brightest when the stage was at its brightest. But they need their stars to shine bright. They need Charles Woodson to show up. They need Aaron Rodgers to show up. Greg Jennings, Jordy Nelson. They need these guys to produce at a Pro Bowl caliber level. I don't see why they won't. The Packers are such a talented and explosive team. Data. Aaron Rodgers should be right around 4,565 passing yards for about 38 to 42 touchdown passes, 8 to 12 interceptions, and about a 67% completion percentage. Greg Jennings should be right around 71 to 77 catches for 1,095 yards, 8 touchdowns to 10 touchdowns, somewhere right in that general vicinity. Jordy Nelson, they said he's looked good in camp this year. You could see a monumental year out of Jordy Nelson, and he had a spectacular year with over 1,200 receiving yards last year. So it's hard for me to think he could top that, but the way they've been talking about him in camp, look out for Jordy Nelson this year if you weren't already looking for Jordy Nelson. 65 to 72 catches for about 1,185 yards and 7 to 9 touchdown receptions. Jermichael Finley. The Packers are waiting for this guy to break out. He has supreme talent. It's there. He just needs to tap into it and tap into it consistently. They're waiting for him to post big numbers, not Jimmy Graham numbers, not Gronk type numbers, but Aaron Hernandez type numbers. They're looking for him to come out and give them 54 to 60 catches for 815 to 900 yards and 9 to 11 touchdowns. I don't see why he can't do that. He just has to focus. He has lapses in concentration sometimes that are inexcusable for a guy of his talent and his skill set. He should be catching everything. His hands are like baseball gloves. They're huge. He should be swallowing up the football. But sometimes he has mental lapses. If he can focus, Jermichael Finley can be one of the best tight ends in all of the National Football League. Packers running backs. 375 to 400 carries for about 1,450 rushing yards and 9 to 11 touchdowns. The Packers need to run the football better in 2012. 2011 was a bad year for them running the football, and they really didn't make much of an effort to correct it, and rightfully so. They were winning without the running game, but it came back to haunt them in the playoffs when most people like to say in the playoffs, and they like to say this when you go on the road, but I feel like home, away, it doesn't matter. In the playoffs, you need to pack a run game and pack your defense. The Packers did neither against the Giants, and they ended up staying home while the Giants went on to win the Super Bowl. So the defense has to be better. The run game needs to be better in 2012. Packers defense. These guys forced turnovers. They didn't get sacks last year. They didn't stop anybody except for when they got them to turn the football over, which they did a lot. They had 38 turnovers forced last year. 31 of them were interceptions, tops in the league. Just to give you some perspective, the next closest team was the Patriots with 23. So they were head and shoulders above the rest of the league in forcing turnovers in 2011. But they got to keep forcing turnovers, and they need to start getting sacks. So 33 to 38 turnovers forced, that's right in their wheelhouse. That's not out of the realm of possibility for them because they are so prolific at causing turnovers. The number that really needs to jump is their sacks. And if they go back to 2010, they were among the top sack leaders in the league with around 47 to 50 sacks. So they need to get back to that. I have them for 40 to 45 sacks with Clay Matthews moving back to the right side where he's comfortable, where he can dominate. I can see him getting back to 13, 15 sacks. If Nick Perry can give them anything on the other side, they can have a formidable pass rush in 2012 and get back to that 35 to 40 to 45 range in sack, which is where they need to be that defense that they want to be. 21.3 points a game given up. Now, that's a huge number in the NFL. That's a lot of points. But when you're the Green Bay Packers and you have such an explosive, dynamic, efficient, cerebral offense as the Packers do, especially in the passing game, you can afford to give up points because Aaron Rodgers and company are going to put points on the board in bunches. And not to mention that the Packers, they found a little hidden gem in Randall Cobb and his ability to be a good returner in the return game. He scored a few touchdowns for them last year. So that's extra points added on to the fact that they're going to score in the offense. And the Packers, like I said, are opportunistic defense. They score on defense as well. Anytime you have Charles Woodson on the field, you're going to score on defense as well. So the Packers score points. They have a plethora of ways that they can score points so they can give up 21.3 points a game and still feel comfortable that they'll have a chance to win. Now, of course, if I'm the Packers, I want that number way down. I want it under 20. But realistically, you can give up 21.3 points because the Packers are going to score points. They're going to find ways to score points. 7 to 9 plays of 40 yards given up. That's what the Packers need to be. Last year they gave up 10. Again, you want that number to be somewhere around 7. That's the league average. They want to get it down somewhere in there. I don't see why they can't, especially if they start to get more pressure on the quarterback. Those corners can't be as bad as they were last year. You can't get any worse than last. So they got to be better. I expect them to be better in 2012. Let's get into the independent variable really fast. The Packers, it's simple for them. Run the ball better, get more pressure, get sacks on the quarterback. I've talked about it at great lengths already. There's really no need to get in depth about it again. But they need to run the football more consistently, take some of the pressure off of Aaron Rodgers in that passing game, or not even take pressure off of it, complement it. Make defenses have to be cognizant of the fact that the Packers can run the football. Make them respect the running game. They have to get pressure on the quarterback. They need to be able to get teams off the field on third down. Generate more turnovers with errant throws, with fumbles forced by sacks. They need to get to the quarterback more, which leads us to our dependent variable. If they can do these things, the Packers will be one of the best teams in the NFL in 2012 because the Packers offense is so dynamic already without the running game. If you add a running game, they'll be almost unstoppable on offense because you won't know what's coming. You'll have to defend the pass and the run. Flip side of that, on defense, if they get more sacks, the Packers will allow themselves to put the ball back in the hands of Aaron Rodgers in that offense. And the Packers are such an opportunistic defense that if the Packers can generate turnovers, then they're going to cash in those turnovers for points. Just like the Patriots, the Packers don't squander opportunities to score points. You give them the ball at their opponent's 25-yard line on change of possession, they're going in for 7. If the Packers pounce on a fumble at midfield, that first play could result in a Jordy Nelson or Greg Jennings 50-yard touchdown reception. They're that explosive on offense, and they don't waste opportunities to score points. So if the Packers can be better in those two areas, they will be a team to be reckoned with, more so than they already will be in 2012. Constance. That Packers offense, especially the passing game with Aaron Rodgers, we've talked about it. They are dynamic. They go 4 or 5 deep at the receiver position. You can't check all of them. Even if you do, they still have a tight end that can get loose. Even if you check all of them on any given play, Aaron Rodgers, just like Drew Brees is great at throwing receivers open. You might get a back shoulder throw on your head. If you have the receiver blanketed, he still can complete a pass on you because he's that accurate. He might thread the needle. You have perfect coverage. You have as good a coverage as you possibly can. Aaron Rodgers will still find a way to fit it in there because you cannot defend the perfect pass. So Aaron Rodgers in that offense is the constant. Since he's taken over in 2008 full-time as the Packers starter, him and that offense have gelled and meshed together and become one of the juggernaut offenses in the league, bar none. So that leads us to our conclusion. With all those things that we've already mentioned, the Packers are primed to get back to the Super Bowl. They're ready. And I think that last year's defeat and what they learned from that, they're going to be hungry this year, and they're looking for revenge. They're a team on a mission because they feel like they didn't lose, they beat themselves. They weren't beaten, they beat themselves. Whatever the case may be, the Packers will use that as motivation in the 2012 season. They will go 13-3, win the NFC North, and get back to the Super Bowl again. If they shore up those two things that we talked about from last year, I don't see who will be able to stop the Packers from achieving their goal of being the Super Bowl champions in 2012. And always remember, when you see Aaron Rodgers, the champ is here! The champ is here! After this break, we're going to give you this lab quiz. We're going to come back and we're going to give you the Chicago Bears.
Lab quiz. Lab quiz.
Let's talk monsters of the Midway, the Chicago Bears. These guys are maybe on paper one of the most talented teams in the league. You look at the moves they made in the offseason, bringing in Brandon Marshall, some of the draft picks that they made to shore up and fortify the receiver position, rushing. The Bears, on paper, before that injury last year, they were one of the hottest teams in the league. There weren't a lot of teams in the league that wanted a part of the Bears last year before the injuries took effect and changed the course of their season. Arguably, you could say that the Bears, if guys play to their full potential, they could be one of these teams that, and the NFL every year has change and turnover in the playoff participants. They could be one of these teams that flip-flops with someone, gets into the show, gets a ticket to the dance, and all of a sudden, the Bears are in the back door and nobody wants a part of them. You know what that defense can do when they play good football. They've made some changes, and they made some subtle changes too that a lot of people aren't talking about that I think are going to make all the difference for the Bears in 2012. Let's get into the Bears and their strengths. When you think of the Bears, you think of their rich history and them being known for smash mouth football. The Bears embody everything about pounding the football and playing sound defense in the National Football League. When you think of the Bears, you think of black and blue, tough, hard-nosed runners, and they've had some of the best running backs over the decades. You look, and they finally find someone in that mold, and Mr. Do-It-All, Matt Forte. He is a strength for the Chicago Bears. Matt Forte does it all, and I'm happy to see him get paid because it shouldn't have took him to threaten to hold out to get his money. He is the Bears offense. He makes the Bears go. And Matt Forte can do everything that you want a back to do and more on the football field. Whether it's a handoff off tackle that he cuts all the way across the field, or it's a simple dump off or a screen play that he runs for 75 yards. Or he takes a linebacker one-on-one and runs a wheel route up the sideline. Matt Forte can do it all on the football field. He is so versatile that he is a large percentage of what the Bears do on offense. Without Matt Forte, the Bears are not even in the discussion of going to the playoffs. That's how much he means to this Chicago Bears organization right now. Matt Forte is a strength, for sure. You can't talk at any depth about the Chicago Bears when talking strengths and not mention Devin Hester and the special teams return unit. These guys are unbelievable. They are the best in the business at what they do, and they do it with extreme efficiency. You don't see special teams units opening up the holes that Devin Hester gets on a consistent basis, and he knows how to set them up, and he knows what to do with those holes when he gets it. How many times do you see a return man get a gaping hole, dart through that hole, only to be slowed down by the kicker or to hesitate too much so to the point where he allows the defender to catch him or get an angle on him and push him out of bounds, or slow him down enough to where he has to make extra moves somebody can catch him from off the pace? Not Devin Hester. Not happening. Devin Hester gets a hole, gets a crease, makes people miss, and without losing a step, without stopping his stride, makes cuts and keeps top speed and scores touchdowns. What they're able to do in that special teams is unremarkable. Sometimes it's unbelievable. You can't believe what you're seeing because all you can do is laugh and say, hey man, they did it again. I cannot believe this. Devin Hester and that special teams unit is so unique and good at what they do. Listen to this. Last year against the Bears, Devin Hester and the special teams unit were able to fake catching the football, looking up, faking catching the football, having the whole special teams collapse to their side. The ball was on the opposite end of the field. Johnny Knox catches it and runs for a touchdown. Never seen anything like it in my life. That's the impact that special teams has. You have to focus so much on Devin Hester that you don't even watch the football. You watch him and what he's about to do. You lose sight of where the football is. They're able to draw in 11 guys to the football, and the football is all the way across the field running for a touchdown. Let's get into the Bears' weaknesses. And the Bears' chief weakness was one that has plagued them for over the last 4 or 5 seasons. Inconsistent play from their offensive line. Their offensive line woes have been well documented. And the addition of Mike Martz as coordinator in 2010 really exacerbated that problem. Mike Martz decided to come in and start implementing 7-step drops. Somebody forgot to give Mike Martz the memo that said this isn't 1999, this isn't 2000. You can't drop back, especially with a porous offensive line, and expect to drop back 7 steps and not get your quarterback hit a ton. Well, his 7-step drop program that he implemented in Chicago got Jay Cutler sacked. Jay Cutler and company, because Jay Cutler missed the last 6 games of the season with an injury. So every quarterback that was behind center last year, they got sacked a combined 49 times. That was for 5th worst in the league last year. That's some real ineptitude at the offensive line positions. And the Bears were so disappointed in Mike Martz and his scheme that he got into it with Lovie Smith over philosophical differences and how the team should be ran. He stepped down. And if you're a Bears fan, you're happy about that. You're glad he's gone because the way he was running your offense, he was going to run it into the ground. They were getting hit way too much. And honestly, I didn't like the way he was running the offense. He came in and he ran the Bears' prolific pass-catching tight end, Greg Olsen, out of town. He alienated him and eventually had him traded to Carolina. And the Bears really haven't had a tight end step in and be able to be a factor on the field since his departure. And that's another weakness of the Bears, is their ability or inability to produce in the red zone with tight ends and to exploit any mismatches down the center of the field with their tight ends, because their tight end position is a joke. They have a huge weapon in Kellen Davis at tight end. He's 6'7", a big man, but they can't get him the football because he's not as athletic as you would like from your tight end position, like Greg Olsen was. And Greg Olsen was 6'5", but he could move. He could create mismatches in the secondary and catch the foot. They haven't had someone that can do that. And so the offensive line, the tight end position, and the strong safety position, the safety position in general, but especially the strong safety position, has been a problem for the Bears. They haven't had consistent safety play since the days of Mike Brown and Chris Harris. I mean, and that's dating back to like 2006 when they went to the Super Bowl. It's been that long since they've had consistent play from their safety position. They have guys in there now. Chris Conte is a guy that they like at the free safety position. They have guys that they're trying out at the other strong safety position. And these guys have to come in and stabilize that back end, because in the National Football League, you can't have a good defense if you're not stable at the safety position, because that's your last line of defense. If you stink in your safety position, if you're funky back there, you're going to get exposed. Teams are going to find them. You can't play cover 2 because they can't play one-on-one back there. They're going to get in your secondary. They're going to get loose, and they're going to make plays because your safeties can't be trusted. They can't be relied upon. You're going to give up big runs, because once that running back gets into the second level, gets to that safety one-on-one, if he's bad back there, they're going to get by him, and they're going to get big runs on your defense. So they have to show up. So those are your weaknesses for the Chicago Bears. That offensive line that Mike Tice, the new offensive coordinator, is looking to shore up. Those tight ends, they got to be better at tight end. Their tight end position is non-existent right now. It's really a joke. And they got to have someone step up there. And then your safety position. They need more consistency out of the safety position. Let's hope they can get that in 2012. Now you move on to camp battles. The first battle is the first thing that we've spoke on, and that's the offensive line. When you're as bad as the Bears are across that offensive line, there are multiple battles going on at a time. They have a battle at left tackle, at left guard, and at right guard. The left tackle battle is wide open. Right now, they're going with Jamarcus Webb. He's a guy that they feel like if he can play consistent football, they'll be fine with Jamarcus Webb moving forward at left tackle. Problem is, they don't know consistent football from Jamarcus Webb. They haven't seen it. He's inconsistent, a guy that gets beat way too fast off the football, gets beat by speed rushers consistently. Then when he overcompensates for the speed rusher, gets beat inside, he has to be more consistent. They've been looking to replace him. The person that they want to replace him with was replaced with Jamarcus Webb, because Chris Williams is just as inconsistent, if not more inconsistent, than Jamarcus Webb. The Bears are at the end of their line, the end of the rope with Chris Williams. The new GM, Phil Emery, he did not draft Chris Williams. There is no ties to Chris Williams. So if he doesn't produce, they have an undrafted tackle that has been playing good football in camp. Not the Godfather of Soul, not the famed broadcaster, but the left tackle, James Brown, the undrafted player out or on the Bears roster right now that they like a lot. If Chris Williams doesn't fix all of the problems that he's been displaying on the field over the last 5 years for the Bears, he might not make the roster. They have really had it with his lack of productivity in their offense and along that offensive line, he could really see himself landing on the streets if he doesn't clean up his act and here fast. I think that camp battle is Jamarcus Webb's to lose, and trust me, he has no problem losing that battle. You move on to the left and right guards position. Both of these positions right now are positions that are open for battle, but the guys that played there last year have the best chance to keep their positions because the Bears really don't have a lot behind them. They went out and got Chicho Real from the 49ers as depth. He could step in at either one of those guard positions. That is highly unlikely to happen. Chris Spencer and Lance Lewis, the two incumbent guards from a season ago, have the best chance of keeping their jobs at those respective positions. I don't see anybody overtaking them. But what Mike Tyson's already come in and said is, look, I don't care who was there last year because he was the offensive line coach last year. I'm looking to put the best 5 guys on the field who can give us the best chance to win football games. And so he's mixing it up. He's shuffling guys around. I think those guys will keep their positions, but it is an open competition for both of those positions. Also, we've touched on strong safety. The Bears like Craig Stelz, a guy they drafted a few years ago out of LSU. He really did a good job at the strong safety position last year. But a guy that the Bears just recently drafted 2 years ago, Major Wright, a safety that they like a lot. They feel like his athleticism and his ability to make plays on the ball is enough for him to warrant a chance to start for the Bears. And so they're going to give him every opportunity to win that starting position. But Craig Schultz, like I said, did such a good job last year. Craig Stelz is a guy that he's going to give the Bears every reason to start him instead of Major Wright. And Major Wright is a guy that has an injury history where he's always dinged up and nicked up and can't go. So if he can't stay healthy, Stelz will be the guy that the Bears turn to for that strong safety position. Let's get into the rookie watch. And the Bears invested a first-round draft pick in Shea McClellan, the defensive end out of Boise State. And the Bears weren't as productive along their defensive line outside of Julius Peppers and Henry Melton. Let me touch on Henry Melton really briefly. Henry Melton is a guy that when I watched the Bears last year, he jumped off of the screen. This guy is developing into one of the premier defensive tackles in a 4-3 defense in the league. When you watch Henry Melton, he's the type of player that is immediately in your backfield. He's knifing through double teams. He's beating slower guards off the ball and being a disruptive force. He had 7 sacks last year. So he's not only stopping the run, but he is getting to the quarterback. Look for Henry Melton to be a guy the Bears rely on that defensive line next to Julius Peppers. And now with first-round selection, Shea McClellan coming in, the Bears could be a team that can produce some pressure on third and long situations, which is what the Bears felt like they needed to improve on. They didn't get a lot of sacks like they have in the past. They had 33 a year ago. They want their number to be closer to 40. And Shea McClellan, the defensive end out of Boise State, is a guy that can help alleviate some of that pressure that Julius Peppers gets on a consistent basis from the opposing teams. The Bears' second-round selection was a wide receiver, and that's another position of need for the Bears. They went out and got Brandon Marshall to be a number 1 receiver, which was what the Bears have lacked for the last 3-4 seasons, is a true number 1 receiver. Now they have that. Devin Hester can slide over, and I prefer my Devin Hester in the slot. They might move him out wide, but they have Alshon Jeffrey, the receiver out of South Carolina, big guy, 6'3", 220 pounds, has a large catch radius, can go up, make plays with the best of them. They like him a lot. He's come in and shown them he has been able to stay in shape. He's a better route runner than they anticipated. He can see the field very early on. Don't be surprised if he's starting, and they moved Devin Hester to the slot. They let Earl Bennett play the slot in the fourth receiver. The Bears can be really deep at receiver this year with the addition of Alshon Jeffrey and Brandon Marshall. The third round selection is a guy that I liked a lot in college. And I was drooling all over this dude because you don't see 6'3", 215-pound, 4.4 speed safeties too often in college football. Now, he missed all of the 2011 season with the shoulder injury, and that's the free safety out of Oregon State, James Harden. This guy, I'm telling you right now, if he can put it together, he could be the next best thing at safety for the Bears. He's going to be a guy that they're going to have to work with, a player that they're going to have to invest a lot of time into because he is a little raw. He was a corner at one time, so that move to safety, he's going to have to learn the nuances of the position. But if he can make that transition smoothly and they can teach him how to be a productive NFL player, look out for Brandon Harden. I think I called him James Harden. Brandon Harden, the free safety out of Boise State, 6'3", 215, 4.4, 440. All right, let's go on to the Bears experiment, and I titled it The Bears because the Bears have a chance, or the Bears have a chance to get back to the playoffs and make noise once they get there. Like I said before, and I'll say this many times, as a team in the National Football League, you want a chance to get to the playoffs. Just let me get a ticket to the dance. Once I get in, I'll find a dance partner that I like, and I'll go from there. Let me get to the show. Let me get a ticket to the dance. I'll show you what I can do once I get there. All you can do is ask for a chance. I think the Bears will get that chance if they do the things necessary to get there, and we're going to discuss them in this experiment. Let's start with the research question. With the changes up front, a new coordinator, and more offensive weapons for Jay Cutler to use at his disposal, is he ready to step up and lead this Chicago Bears team to an NFC North crown, or possibly just a playoff berth, and get to the Super Bowl once they get there? That's a big question for the Bears. Is Jay Cutler ready to turn the corner? We've known Jay Cutler to be a guy with a huge arm, can make all the throws on a football field. Sometimes mentally you wonder if he's there. He looks a little aloof at times. But Jay Cutler has the ability to be an elite quarterback in this league. The skill set is there. Is he ready? He has weapons now. There's no more excuses other than that offensive line. If that need is addressed, if they can find 5 guys that can be competent. We're not asking for these guys to come in and be at a Pro Bowl level. Be competent at what you're doing. If they can get 5 guys on the field that can be competent, protect Jay Cutler, give him time to throw the football down the field. He has weapons finally around him. They could be dangerous this year. Let's go to the hypothesis, and it reads as such. If the Bears can get consistency from the offensive line, stellar play from Matt Forte, and Jay Cutler takes the next step in his progression as Bears QB, then the Bears can contend for the NFC North title and possibly for a chance to play in the Super Bowl. The Bears are an interesting team in 2012 because, again, in 2011, when they got injured, right before they got injured, they were one of the best teams in the league. They were playing some of the best football in the league. With the addition of Brandon Marshall, these draft picks, some of these guys on the offensive line, Mike Tice in as offensive coordinator, Mike Martz out as offensive coordinator, you got to feel good about this Bears team in 2012. they have a chance to really make some noise in the NFC. And really, this conference is wide open after you get past the 49ers, after you get past the Packers, and of course, the Giants. There's space for teams to move up in this conference. There's no reason why the Bears can't make their way into the playoffs and do damage once they get there. But Cutler has to be consistent. That offensive line has to be better. Matt Forte has to play the way he was playing in 2011 that warranted that contract that he just got. And guys have to step up and play good football. Materials needed. Razor sharp Cutler. Jay Cutler has to take that next step, has to be that quarterback that he showed signs of being in Denver when he threw for almost 5,000 yards, when he was throwing for touchdowns left and right, when he was finding Brandon Marshall 100 times in a season. He has to be that guy that makes good decisions, sound decisions on the football field. He can't afford to turn the ball over 20-something times in the season. He has to get those turnover numbers down, and he has to play smart within the offense and be efficient as Bears quarterback to take that next step and take the Bears where they want to go. Midway defense. The Bears have to look like a shell of themselves. They have to look like the former Bears who used to be up at the top of the league among the league leaders in defense. They haven't been there in a while, and a lot of that has to do with the turmoil at safety. You can't be a consistently good defense if you don't get good safety play, at least adequate safety play, because they're the last line of defense. If they break down, big plays are made by the other team's offense. You have to get solid play from your safeties. They're looking to do that in 2012. If you're a Bears fan, let's hope you can do that. Get pressure from Julius Peppers and company and be the midway defense, the monsters of the midway that you can be when you're playing your best football. I want to tell you something. If you're a Bears fan, Urlacher has to concern you. You have nothing. When I say nothing, I mean nothing behind Brian Urlacher. He can't play. You're going to suffer at middle linebacker. You better hope and pray that Urlacher can suit up at least 12 to 14 times for you this year, and those nagging injuries aren't a problem moving into the season. Because if he can't play, woo, you guys are in some trouble at that middle linebacker spot. So, anyway, Forte. You need Matt Forte to give it to the defense any way he possibly can. If you're offensive coordinator Mike Tice, you want to get the ball in Matt Forte's hands any way possible. Screen, dump off, wheel route, up the sideline, the dagger route, across the middle of the field, running plays, tosses, stretches, off tackle. You want Matt Forte to be involved in this offense as much as possible because he is a difference maker. He is a playmaker in this league. One of the best all-around backs in all of the game, and you want to have him on display at all times if possible. Now, he did get a backup in Michael Bush, an adequate backup in Michael Bush. This guy can come in and give you carries, spell Matt Forte so he can be as healthy as possible and as refreshed as possible when you put him on the field so he can give you big plays. Look for Forte to be a big part of the Bears offense in 2012, and he could be the thing that puts them over the top if he can remain healthy. Devin's special, you see that? Special team. These guys are not your average special teams unit. They score touchdowns. They make plays in special teams. They are the best at what they do in the league, and the Bears need them to consistently be that team that they've been over the last 3 years. Continue to score, continue to set the Bears up with prime field position, and help these guys put points on the board in the return game. The Bears' special team is the most special team in the league, and Devin Hester is a big part of why they are so special. I'm hoping that he doesn't allow his wide receiver duties to take away from how special the Bears are on special teams. They are dynamic, breathtaking at what they do, and they need to continue to be that way for the Bears to be the team that they want to be in 2012. Offensive line, don't be offensive. Please don't be offensive. You have to go out and hold down the fort at your respective position. If your offensive linemen go out and do your job to the best of your ability. If you're the Bears, this is your biggest concern going into the 2012 season. Can I put 5 guys on the field that can protect my quarterback, keep him upright, and give him time to deliver the football to the playmakers that we now have at the skill positions out wide? The line has to be better than it was in 2011 for this Bears team to go anywhere. If the Bears' offensive line is a mess, as it's been in the past years, the Bears will not go anywhere but home come week 17. The line has to play at a higher level than it's been playing in the past couple of seasons for the Bears to be anywhere near the playoffs come the end of the regular season. Depth, be ready. This Bears team was banged up last year. They went out and made some moves. Backup quarterback last year, horrendous for the Bears. They went out, they got Jason Campbell. He's a great backup. I think this is the perfect role for him. He's not ready to accept that he's a backup in this league, but that's what Jason Campbell is. He's nobody's starting quarterback because he doesn't wow you. He has no problem on 3rd and 6 taking a check down for 3 yards. And that's okay because that's not a turnover. You'd rather punt than have somebody force a 7-yard pass in that gets deflected and picked off. But he's not willing to take the chances that's necessary for a team to be able to rely on him as a starting quarterback. He doesn't make the plays necessary to separate himself from average run-of-the-mill quarterbacks. But that's okay for a backup. Jason Campbell will be great in that role. If you're a Bears fan, let's hope he doesn't have to see the field, though. But the depth has to be ready. Michael Bush has to be ready to step in for Matt Forte in case of injury. All these receivers that they've acquired, you have to be ready to step in if somebody goes down. The depth on this team has to be ready. I'm talking to you, middle linebacker, Mr. Costanzo. You better be ready if Urlacher can't play. Because right now, Costanzo, you don't look so hot at middle linebacker. You better be ready. As my high school coach used to tell me, son, be ready. Let's move on to data. The Bears need these numbers from their core to be successful in 2012, excuse me. Jay Cutler needs to have 3,470 passing yards, 27 touchdowns versus 17 interceptions, and a 60.2% completion percentage. Brandon Marshall needs to have 88 to 91 catches for 1,090 yards to 1,155 yards and 8 to 10 touchdowns. Matt Forte needs to have 235 carries to 250 carries for 1,085 yards to 1,125 yards. 51 to 55 catches for 625 to 640 yards receiving, and 8 to 11 touchdowns total. That's rushing and receiving touchdowns total. The Bears defense needs to generate more turnovers. All right. The Bears need to force 29 to 32 turnovers, 33 to 38 sacks, which I think they can do, 19.6 points a game. The Bears gave up over 21 points a game last year. That's too much for them. They're not an explosive, dynamic offense. That's not to say that they won't be in 2012, but they're not a dynamic, explosive offense right now. On paper, you got to think that if you're the Bears, you want to give up less than 20 points. The Bears, when they're playing their best football, they don't give up anywhere near 20 points. They're more around 16, 17 points per game. That's when they're elite. That's when they're one of the top defenses in the league. They haven't been that way in a while, and with aging players like Lance Briggs and Brian Urlacher, I don't know if they'll get back to that point in 2012. You would hope so if you're a Bears fan, but even if they don't, you want to keep that number under 20 points a game. Plays of over 40 yards, 6 to 8. The Bears want to keep that down. They play that cover 2 defense exclusively majority of the time. And in that cover 2, you really try to limit big plays, and the Bears do a good job of that. So that number should be relatively low. Keep it to around 6, 7 plays in the passing game of over 40 yards, and you should be fine if you're the Bears. You'll take that number. Special teams. I added this category for the Bears because their special teams unit is unlike any other special teams unit in the league. They get results consistently out of their special teams unit with Devin Hester. And so you look for 2 punt returns for touchdowns, and that's not a lot. They've averaged 3 returns for touchdowns over the last 2 years. So 2 in the return game for punts, 1 for a kickoff return. And then you look for 7 to 9 returns of over 20 yards. The Bears led the league in returns over 20 yards with 9 of them. And you look for 3 to 5 returns of over 40 yards. And the Bears were right there at the top. Again, they were 3rd in the league with with 3 returns over 40 yards last year. They can be dynamic in the return game, even when they don't score touchdowns. People forget that when they don't score, they still break long returns and set that Bears offense up in really good field position consistently. And so when you do that, it's so much easier to put points on the board. Independent variable. Consistency is the name of the game when it comes to the Bears and the 2012 season. For them, they have to be consistent to win. All right. The Bears are only going to go as far as Jay Cutler takes him and his arm takes them. Matt Forte and his legs take that offense. And the offensive line and their ability to be consistent. They're only going to go as far as Jay Cutler and Matt Forte are able to take them on the offensive end. But they can't do their jobs adequately if the offensive line is porous. So the offensive line has to be consistent for the Bears to be where they want to be. And so the flip side of that, your dependent variable, if the offensive line can produce and help the offense produce and matriculate the ball down the field, keep Jay Cutler upright, allow him to get the ball in his playmaker's hands, allow Matt Forte to run wild all over the field, this Bears offense can be a top-flight offense in the league. They have the weapons. Forte is a top 5 player at his position. Jay Cutler has the potential. He's not there right now. Has the potential to be a top 10 player at his position. Brandon Marshall is a top 5 player at his position. I think a lot of people overlook Brandon Marshall. Go look at his numbers. When he's playing great football, the Miami Dolphins weren't world beaters at the quarterback position. They didn't have a lot of talent on that team. Marshall still was able to have over 100 grabs for over 1,000 yards. This guy is consistent. You look at his numbers dating back to the Denver days when he was playing with Jay Cutler. He's been catching 100 balls consistently for well over 1,000 yards. Brandon Marshall can flat out get it done. They have talent on the offensive side of the ball. If the offensive line can protect Jay Cutler, keep Matt Forte in those running lanes looking good, I tell you what, the Bears can be one of the most explosive offenses in the league. The sky's the limit, but the floor is down here. The sky's up here, but that floor, the bottom can drop out of this thing really quick. So we go on to the constants. And the constants, the Bears special teams unit, Devin Hester, and the special teams unit. These guys are prolific. These guys, my friend, he talks to me all the time about the Bears, and he calls their special teams unit fiends because they block like no one else. The avenues that Devin Hester gets to run through are enormous. And even when it's not, I give Devin Hester all the credit in the world. He squeezes through, sets up these blocks, and he finds creases that aren't necessarily there. And he's able to make people miss. And he never stops running full speed. Even when he changes direction, he's still going full speed. And that's what makes him elite. He makes guys miss. He doesn't waste steps. There are no wasted motions with Devin Hester. If a kicker thinks he's going to tackle him, Devin gives him a simple in and out move, keeps him moving. And that's what you do to kickers because they're so unathletic. You know, you give a kicker a little in and out move and he's falling all down, tripping over his own feet. You don't need to give the kicker a lot of movement. You allow guys to come off the pace and catch you. Get a kicker a little simple move and keep running, man. And that's what Devin Hester is great at. This Devin Hester and this special teams unit is the best in the league, and it's a constant for the Bears. They can rely on the Bears special teams unit for 3 scores every year. That's saying a lot. You had 12 teams in the league last year who did not score a touchdown on special teams, period. So for the Bears to score 3 touchdowns on special teams the last 2 seasons, that's saying a lot. That speaks volumes as to how good they are on special teams. That leads us to our conclusion. The Bears are a legitimate contender if the offensive line can shore up their problems. Mike Tice, the new offensive coordinator, and I think a lot of people are not talking enough about his addition or promotion from defensive line coach to the offensive coordinator. His offensive coordinator duties, his first job, his first thing that he said he was going to come in and fix was that line. And if he can get that line to piece together an adequate performance in 2012, the Bears are going to make it to the playoffs. I can't see them unseating the Packers as the king of the mountain in the NFC North, but what I can see them doing is going 10-6, landing them a wild card spot in the playoffs, and again, getting a ticket to the show, to the dance is the most important thing. I don't care how you get there. The Giants continuously get there as wild cards. The Packers got there as a wild card. When they won the Super Bowl in 2007, the Giants got there as a wild card. Last year, they snuck in the back door at 9-7 as a divisional champ. Just get into the show. Just get a ticket to the dance. And after you do that, let the cards fall where they may. The Bears are going to be 10-6 this year with a legit chance to make it to the Super Bowl if they get production out of their offensive line. And this goes without saying. You have to assume that the team is going to stay healthy. Every team in the National Football League, you can say the same thing for. Assuming health. Every team needs to stay healthy at their core positions to win. So the Bears are no different. If they can stay healthy, get the line to perform, they're going to be a team that's going to go 10-6, scare some teams in the NFC, and if the ball bounces their way, they could end up being in the NFC Championship game and give themselves a chance to go to the Super Bowl. And on that note, throw them up. Touchdown! Now, I want to tack on a quick extra point. The preseason is back, and you get a chance to see these officials. I just talked about them again, and I got to mention them yet again because I watched preseason football last night, and these officials are egregious. They're making some bad calls, and they're doing it on a consistent basis. They have to clean this up. We can't have our game being tainted by bad officiating. If I'm a coach, I don't want to have to use my challenge flag on something that is obvious on the field. Roger Goodell and that whole staff of officials, they have to get together, find a common ground, get this thing solved, and move forward. We can't have the NFL putting a less than stellar product on the field with these officials. Preseason is going on. Keep your eye on these teams. Watch out for injuries. Vic hurt his hand. He's going to be okay. You got guys out there that's playing ball. I can't tell you how excited I am that the preseason is finally upon us. You actually get to see, live bullets being thrown around. It's good to be back. The Redskins played last night. I was excited. I was posting on Facebook and Twitter. I told guys, do not overreact either way before the game started. Robert Griffin III had a great game. And again, don't overreact to what you saw. Take it for what it was. First preseason game. You can't put too much stock into it. Just like what you saw. Hope that he builds on it and continues to get better. Again, Peyton Manning played. Keep your eye on the preseason. It's interesting stuff. And it gives you an idea of what your favorite team and other teams around the league are going to be able to do in the 2012 season. And with that being said, that's going to be an episode. Again, hit me up on the inbox in the lab room at gmail.com. I'm on Facebook, on Twitter. In the lab room is my Twitter handle. In the lab room, that's my Facebook page. Find me. Throw me some information. Give me some feedback, man. I'm here. And like I said, we're going to go through this season together. Next 6 months, we're going to do this thing. Let's have fun while we're doing it. I will see you on Monday. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the NFL preseason in all of its splendor. I'll see you on Monday.